Thanks for joining us on the King Law Podcast, where we give you a lawyer's perspective on anything legal. Or not. From criminal law, personal injury, and trending legal topics, we're your back pocket legal guide. How do drug dealers get caught? Let's go right into that one.
How do drug dealers get caught? Well, number one is probably selling to undercover cops.
Okay.
Wrong.
Oh. What is it?
Try again. How else the drug? Traffic
Well, are you
stop
talking
where they
about-
get pulled over? Wrong. That's wrong too.
Well, they probably would have already been suspected by the time you get a search warrant, right?
Yeah.
So that's not what you're looking for.
No, that's not it.
Tapping cell phones.
No, that's not right.
That's rare.
That's rare.
That's very
lot
rare.
of work, and they know about the phones.
Yeah, the
They get a
burner
new-
phones,
They get a new
right.
phone every week.
They can't keep up with the burner phones.
No.
So how do drug dealers get caught? I'm trying to think too. Like, what would be something obvious? Like,
So
doing it in an open public place? Like,
yeah, there's all sorts of surveillance, FBI, DEA, police departments, tons of different tactics, wiretaps, poll cameras, all of these things. They're all wrong. You got to think.
I'm not a drug dealer, so I don't know.
Yeah, so free legal advice, don't sell drugs, it's illegal.
Yes.
Let's predicate that the way.
Leave that to the pharmaceutical reps.
You'll write that down for me.
Yes.
So this is a blog I actually wrote in 2013, 10 years ago, and it's been ranked number 1 or 2 on Google for 10 years. And did a lot of really serious cocaine conspiracy cases in the beginning of my career. And we still do some of that, but not as much as I did for a while. The way almost every serious drug dealer gets caught, the real kilo buyers and sellers, is a person from within their organization. It's,
So a snitch.
it's a snitch, and it's sometimes they say work up the chain. It's a person with drugs gets caught. They say you can go to jail or you can tell us what happened.
Gotcha.
And people don't want to
And
go
they
to jail.
sing like a canary.
And that's how and it's interesting, different organizations, sometimes they're called DTOs, drug trafficking organizations, have different cultures, but people think that really serious drug dealers don't talk. Well, every serious case I've been involved in, the reason was what they would call a CI, confidential informant. And it's the way real drug dealers get caught is confidential informants.
Dang.
Good to know.
And the
So trust no one.
right. And kind of like phase 2 of the conversation, though, is the really good prosecutors, the ones that are skilled. You think courtroom, aggressive. They have the ability to talk to a person who's accused of committing a really serious crime and say, well, the prosecutors don't know. They don't live that life. So they have to get their information from someone who's been arrested, who's committed crimes, and to be able to have these meetings. They're called proffers. And they're like, look, we'll work a deal with you, but you got to do something for us. The ability for that prosecutor, that lawyer, that police officer who 2 days ago I was trying to catch you and lock you up, and now you're here, and we're going to talk person to person about how things get better for you in a human level. And it's always really interesting. And typically I would be sitting next to the drug dealer, the guy who got caught, or we're watching, we're looking at police reports of, hey, my friend, brother, spouse, the people who know what you're doing, they're the people who are close to you. And those are the reason you're arrested is because the CI
Got to. Yeah.
told them about you.
That's interesting. So do you have any follow-up comments or
No, I think that.
before I segue into something?
And it's so I have a fair bit of experience defending the serious drug cases, but Mike had a lot of experience doing violent felonies. And,
Right.
And as a prosecutor, I mean, you've sat in those proffer meetings and
Many proffers.
what? So just explain kind of like what's a proffer?
So you are talking to someone who's typically charged with a crime at that point, and You're going to sit down with them a lot of times in jail with their lawyer, and you're going to see what they know. And it's not an interrogation necessarily. You're not eliciting information to use against them. You're trying to learn what they know and how they can help you.
Okay.
And then you take that information and you think about, what can that information do for you in your case? And what benefit can you give them in return for it? And then you work out a deal.
Yeah, and this goes back to where defense lawyers and prosecutors, what type of mutual respect they have for each other, what type of trust they have for each other. You don't have to be friends, you don't have to like each other, but you're walking in as a defense lawyer, you're walking into this meeting with no promises. You have a guy who paid you a lot of money, you have his life in your hands, and you say, we're gonna go tell this guy some really serious stuff that doesn't make us look good. That the reason you have information that the prosecutor or the government wants to know is you've done, know, or been around something that's probably illegal. And you got to tell this guy, and he's going to say, well, let me see what you know, and maybe this might help you, but I'm making you no promises. There's like, and I might tell you to go screw yourself.
Yeah,
And
you might sit there and listen to
say thanks,
them,
but no thanks.
right?
Appreciate it.
No deal.
Yeah. Sorry.
And that's where the prosecutor's reputation and the defense attorney's reputation, this meeting
You
is...
both have to trust each other on some level.
Yeah.
You're not going
And
to
the-
screw each other over.
And the way you act today affects what's going to happen 2 years from now. If Mike's the prosecutor, I'm the defense attorney, I tell my client, look, I met with him about a case 2 years ago, and I know he's going to do things the right way. And we had an outcome or whatever it might be.
So what's realistic jail time for someone who is a drug dealer that has people working under him and like it's a whole production? Like that's, I don't know. Can you even, I'm kind of just like throwing this out.
Right? Now I think you get drug
Okay.
court, right? It's
Yeah.
Weed's
Now you
legal.
get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, weed is legal.
I mean,
That was
Weed's
not
a
the
whole
key-
nother ball game, but
yeah.
like the hard
it's so
stuff.
fact specific and it's so dependent on their history. And a lot of times, those organizations are tied up in other crimes. So the reason that you're looking at them is because they're out, shooting other, rivals.
So a lot of
and
drug
there
cases
might-
probably have gun charges associated.
Yeah, murders, drug dealer on murder, robbery. So probably the biggest case I ever did was a Colin Montague conspiracy, and we had a guy in that. And the thing with these are Jamaican guys, and Jamaican guys are known to be rough. And this Colin Montague, of all things, he was not a violent person. The whole organization was not violent. They didn't even have any guns. They got robbed. He knew, I think he knew, the way he was going to really get in trouble or get investigated was from the violence.
Right.
So they're doing kilo upon kilo of cocaine every month. No
But
one
they're
ever,
going under the radar. 'cause
no one
there's
ever
no
got
violence.
hurt. They didn't get caught. They were running this for 8 or 10 years. And
Yeah, because when you talk about somebody flipping, when you talk about someone doing an undercover buy, you're talking about typically people who have the attention of authorities, right? And a lot of times that attention comes from them being involved with other crimes.
Gotcha. Yeah, because if you, like in that case that you were just talking about, the whole idea is almost, listen, I don't condone drug dealing, but it's almost like a business. Like they're not in it to like for show. Like, look at me, I have power over you. It's more like, okay, we're making money. This is what we got to do. And it's not about all the other showy factors behind it.
It's possible.
Maybe. But talking about weed, though, and marijuana, people, so now that it's legal up to a certain, like, point, what about people who have been charged in the past? Can they do appeals? What can they do? Or have you seen this happen?
yeah, we have. I did one of the biggest marijuana cases ever.
Ever?
Ever around here.
Okay.
I mean, I did a couple big really, I mean, hundreds of pounds per week. I did 2 different ones. One where they were importing, exporting through Canada. The grow operation was in Montreal. They were coming through the Indian reservation, through tunnels and boats and crazy stuff. And there were houses that were delivery spots and all that kind of stuff. And that's one scenario. And there was there's money laundering aspect and all kinds of stuff. That was a federal case. And then we did a case in Ontario County with local guys with grow houses, and we're trying to get that expunged. But that's to the highest level. But I think your lower level marijuana cases have a really good chance of getting expungements.
Interesting.
I don't know if you followed it all. The thing that's kind of interesting to me now is you can give away marijuana, you can have marijuana, it seems to be legal. These people that are running marijuana stores that are selling marijuana, and then like, okay, you buy a pack of cigarettes and we'll give you $50 worth of weed. You can't do that. And I mean, anybody, if that's your plan, give me a call. We'll talk about it.
Not smart.
We've represented a handful of people, and you buy a sticker for $100 and we'll give you some weed.
Yes.
Or you buy a T-shirt for whatever and we'll give you. Just because there's a third thing in there doesn't mean it's not. If you're giving the money to get the weed, even if there's
right, exactly.
Yeah.
You're still.
Yeah, it's just interesting the creative ways that people come up to get away with that.
Yeah, that's almost honestly not very creative. That's really not.
But it's smart. I mean, to an extent until you get caught.
Well,
I don't think it's. I mean, there's got to be better ways. That's pretty bad.
I think we were. So you make $500,000 in 3 months, and then
you spend $100,000 in legal fees when you get caught.
Right, and all the money gets seized by the FBI. It's all gone, or the local law enforcement when they take over your store. So
maybe not.
So you're really just working for the police.
Oh. All right. Let's talk about when it does.
I gotta go.
Oh.
You guys can keep going.
Okay. Oh, okay. Bye.
I know I have to go. I have a call at 11:30.
Good luck.
Okay. Well, that'll just my last question, which is fine. So, thanks for walking in front of the camera.
There's going to be a lot of editing on this one.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so my last question was, when does a case go federal? So if you have a misdemeanor and then it ends up going federal, what are some cases that might happen in?
I think usually child sex crimes.
Okay.
For example, if there's an allegation and then maybe they do a search warrant on a cell phone or somebody's house and they find child pornography, that's a case then can move to the feds.
Okay.
I think that's a good example. But it could happen, I think that would be probably a good example for a misdemeanor or even felonies, depending on what the charges are.
What about drugs?
Yeah, drugs and guns.
Is it the amount that makes it go federal, or?
No, you could have a case be federal and state at the same time.
Really? So you can be prosecuted by 2 different entities at the same time for the same crime.
You can, but it's very rare that would happen.
Why is that?
I think it would just be seen as a waste of resources. I think that's one concern. Sometimes, one has better sentencing than the other one.
Okay.
So you would prefer maybe federal sentencing because you can get more time. There's also issues with
what do you mean? Would prefer more?
Like if you're the
prosecutor,
yes,
because federal sentencing is more strict, correct?
It is more strict. So there are guidelines, and a lot of times you can't escape those guidelines.
Even the judge can't.
Right, they're given
do anything about that.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're just given a range, and it is what it is.
Okay.
Another concern could be, having. Let's just say there are victims involved. You're not going to want them to testify twice, right?
Okay, right.
In both cases. So a lot of times a case could start at the state level and then the feds would charge them. And then what you're really doing is dismissing your cases on the state level. So it's not necessarily that it's not automatic that the state case goes away and then it's just federal now. It's really that the state is saying, okay, the feds agreed to take this. We're not going to go forward on our case anymore.
Okay. Makes sense. And you're in, I mean, depending on the severity, you're probably like, yeah, go to federal. That way the guidelines and the sentencing, I feel like, would be harsher, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've had cases where, when I was a prosecutor, where I talked to the feds and they agreed to take it, and I dismissed my charges and let them take it because they had stricter sentencing guidelines.
Yeah.
And in New York now, they also have less strict discovery and disclosure obligations on the federal side than the state. There's a lot more that could go wrong with your state case the way it is in New York than when your federal case.
So basically what you're saying is, on a defense case, if a case goes federal, this is not good.
It's not as good. It's not as good.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Okay.
You have a lot less to work with, I think, on the defense side. But a lot of times the feds are doing their own investigations and deciding what cases to pick up on their side. So obviously it's not all just cases starting state going federal, but I think that you're most likely to see that probably in child abuse cases and gun and drug cases.
Gotcha. Interesting. I was always curious, so. That concludes this episode of the King Law Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and check out our socials at King Law Attorneys. And if you've happened to have been injured or charged with a crime, now you know who to call. King Law. Take charge.